As long as you take any tool, is this tool well designed? It's a problem in program verification. When we write computer programs that are meant to solve certain kinds of problems, did they get it right? Did they give the right solution? One thing you try to do, give it candidate input and see if it gives you the right answer. But you can only do this for input where you know the right answer. And you probably had those in mind when you wrote the code. If there are mistakes, it's probably for kinds of input that you didn't think of. And similarly here, when we go to the induction axiom, we go to it with a goal. We formulate a case of it that will do something we wanted. We don't look at crazy, complicated cases of it that might do things we don't want, like lead to a contradiction.
I mean, usually, like in foundation law, you try to use mathematical induction to prove a result that you think is true, or that you're supposed to, right? But I mean, how often do you set up inductions where the fee you're trying to prove is something you know isn't true, but it's still an axiom in theory, right? It's just bizarre, right? So some version like that, I suppose.
Yeah, when I break the gears on my bicycle, it's because I did something else wrong. I did something that you're not meant to do on a bicycle, and it broke the gears. I put it in a situation it wasn't meant to be in. We've never put induction in situations where we didn't know what it was meant to do, because we can't, it's too complicated. Yeah.
Why do you emphasize induction so much, given that you mentioned Q? I mean, Q hasn't, as you say, hasn't got induction. You can do the coding, you can prove that Q is essentially undecidable. So induction doesn't seem to be the central issue with regard to incompleteness of arithmetic.
No.
Because it all emerges at a much more elementary level, much simpler level.
But on the question of inconsistency, it's inconceivable to me that the axioms apart from induction are inconsistent. Now, it's true they only have infinite models, but they have lots of infinite models. If there's an inconsistency in counter arithmetic, it'll be in the axiom of induction.
And if there's an inconsistency in Q, where is it?
Well, there just isn't an inconsistency in Q. I can't take that seriously.
That's the way to give the conditional by denying the antecedent. You can't answer a conditional by denying the antecedent.
Well, no, but I can say there's no serious question of consistency of Q.
No.
Nobody wonders about it. Nobody should wonder about it. There's no serious question there. But there is a serious question of inconsistency of counter arithmetic because we don't really know very concretely what all is in there. We do know all of what's in Q. Q is finitely axiomatized. PA is not finitely axiomatized. And really, to say that you know the typical arbitrary length formula of PA, what it looks like, I'm going to have to side with John on that. That's just not true. We don't know what the typical arbitrary length formula of counter arithmetic looks like.
That's why we have a theory about it.
Well, and I believe it's consistent. But Q, I know is consistent. Actually not as accurately as I am in the older articles. Because in the older articles, I plan into them. Yeah, pretty impressionistically, it's not.
Can I make another point? What you say about concrete theory of arithmetic and what Hilbert meant by enhancement shows that it's very similar to what Popper meant by falsifiable in empirical sense. A statement of the form for every x there is a y is, if it's unbounded, maybe unfalsifiable. Every solid has a melting point, maybe unfalsifiable, but you go on heating it and it just sticks there. Mm-hmm. But if you put a limit on it, if you put another bound on it, then you can falsify it. So what Hilbert thought of as contentful are really the arithmetical counterparts of what Popper thought of as empirical.
Yeah, I think as a historical point, I'm very happy with some of the anachronistic interpretations of Hilbert on finitism. They're valuable logic, they're worth pursuing, but they're not very deep history. And a nicer intellectual history of it, for example, comparing does he have any similar sources to Popper, I think would also be worth pursuing.
They're both sorts of Kantians. They're both Kantians of a sort.
Yeah, of a sort, but what sort? Yeah.
But I don't think Popper was influenced by Hilbert in these considerations. I mean, Hilbert was a generation earlier.
Yeah, I have no idea. No, and Hilbert won't have been by Popper, but are there common sources? Is this just a similarity, or is there really a connection here? I think I would wish that history of Hilbert was not so bound up with the anachronistic reconstructions. I'm absolutely in favor of reconstruction, but I do sometimes wish that there was more historical study of Hilbert that was a little farther from it.
Yeah. Since we've opened up the discussion to what we call the broader epistemological orientation of some of these remarks, some of these positions, it does strike me that there's one very salient aspect from a broader epistemological perspective to this idea that there is no court of appeal for all consistency questions, that we cannot hope to dig any deeper than cross-relative consistency proofs. And that is that it cuts really in a very direct way against the traditional Aristotelian model of definition and explanation, that there can be no indefinite regress or indeterminacy, or circularity, threatening circularity in definition or explanation.
Yeah.
This seems to be cutting in a direction strongly against that claim.
Well, somebody who wants to pick one foundation can still appeal to Aristotle and say, after all, Aristotle tells us there's no indefinite regress, but there is stopping when you know what the better sort of people say. That's what we need to do. We just need to know what the better sort of people rely on.
But that is a very internalist reading of Aristotle.
Yeah.
I don't think it's one John Mabry would be happy with. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I think we're going to go for refreshments for half an hour before reconvening for David Corcoran's talk. If you'd like to join me in thanking Colin and McCarthy. I think that's